Happy Wednesday. Welcome to the Wednesday live stream. What's going on, Mark?
Hello, how's it going?
Wonderful, thank you. How are you?
I was just sitting here waiting since Saturday, hoping that you would do this, and thank God, because I got to use the restroom after this show is over.
That's fair. That's a long wait, and I appreciate you setting up the Nano just for the background. It's very considerate.
It was a quick cycle, but
Yep.
I figured I had 3 hours, so I thought I could pull this off.
That's fair. What all do you have in your Nano? I don't think I've actually seen this one.
There's a royal grama in there, and
Mhm.
there's a bunch of rock anemones,
Nice.
and there's been a bit of a hair algae issue that's been driving me crazy since I got it, but I just haven't spent the money on buying a bunch of snails and hermits to work on it.
That's
So eventually, I'm hoping in 2025 that tank will be prettier, but for now, it's kind of,
fair.
it is what it is. Yeah.
The first month or two, I definitely went through LGs and all kinds of hassles in my Nano, so I feel you. I was peroxide treating it, pulling it out, all the gamut. Now it's, other than the glass, it's fairly algae free, which is good. But again, new tank, it's almost like you're paying your dues until your tank gets established.
That's true.
I know. So
you start this show at 7:10 every Wednesday?
it used to be 4 Pacific, and then I jumped it to 5 Pacific. But my wife works until 5, and we got like trade off the kid and stuff. So adding that little 10-minute buffer just took the stress out of it, of
Okay.
trying to organize it the second she's off work. And yeah.
I thought you just stole my idea because I run my show at 2:08
Oh,
every week.
good to know.
I was like, so you're doing yours at 7:10? That's interesting, or 5:10. That's
Yeah.
interesting that you're mimicking me.
That's funny. That's true. You do yours at a weird time. Mine is
Because I'm never ready at 2.
Oh, that's fair. Mine's work/kid/schedule related, but
Yeah.
that's fair. I appreciate it. We're on the same boat. Shelly, thank you for the super chat. Much appreciated. Don't forget to hit that ReefDudes like button. Appreciate it. Amanda, welcome. So new tank. You're going through the struggles of a new reefer. One thing that if anyone's been in the hobby for a while, the older a tank gets, generally the easier tank gets.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and sometimes people don't stick it out long enough to get to that stage where it becomes, relatively easy. So figured it'd be a bit of a good topic for today.
Yeah. So how old is your tank now?
The little Nano beside me is probably 4 or 5 months, maybe.
No, your big reef.
That's 4.5 years, maybe 5 years. I don't know. Let's find out.
Let's find out.
I have to look at my own YouTube video playlist to look at the dates of when I uploaded stuff. It's kind of how I keep track of my timeline.
Okay.
Your tank's very mature. How old's yours?
Over 11 years old.
Okay. 5 years ago is like my unboxing video of it. So we'll go
Nice.
with
This is a super exciting
close to 5.
day because the new water
Yeah.
box tank.
It doesn't tell me the actual date. Just as 5 years ago. So yeah, 4.5, 5 years, somewhere in that ballpark. And
Yeah.
it's definitely a lot easier now than it was. Like in the early days, again, there was all those battles with every type of pest you can think of, different algae, and now I hardly have any things I deal with other than just keeping sure parameters are in check.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I mean, think about it. You're not spending money on livestock and fish because it's kind of full. Yeah, my tank is maxed out right now. It's over full. It's been over full for at least the last 9 months, and I've just been ignoring the situation because I know at some point I'm going to have to get down to my armpits, cleaning it out and making space.
Yep.
But
That is a problem eventually. And ironically, last week, I finally started to hack up a couple corals that were essentially blocking all my flow and taking up, basketball-sized chunks of real estate. So my red dragon, which I finally decided to hack up because a couple of branches were STNing, I was like, okay, this is a sign. And then I pulled it out, and it was unbelievable how much of the base died off. Because you look at it and everything looks pristine and perfect, but you don't see 5 inches down into that colony, which doesn't see the light of day because it's so thick with coral.
Yeah.
So I'm, there's a chunk like this just thrown in the garbage because I'm trimming off all around it, the healthy stuff.
Yeah.
So it's like long-term reef tank problems.
now you have to paint all the white, make it green or blue or something.
And put it back.
Make it blend.
Nah, it's in the garbage. I just
Or you
kept the
gotta-
branches.
No, I'm talking about what's
No.
left in the tank. You can see the side now. You're going to have to Photoshop that out.
Nah, I just make it small. It grows back eventually. But amount of space, the tank feels so much more spacious now. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
look at this room for the fish to swim. Look at this room
Yeah.
for new corals, which is fun.
That's exactly what I need to do with my tank. And I've got a really bad infestation of little tiny bubble tip anemones.
hmm
they don't get bigger. I call them nano nems because they fit in a nano tank really nicely. But there must be 100, 150 in my 400-gallon reef right now. And so they've stung and stolen a lot of territory.
Yep.
So when I finally go in there and start plucking these little guys out one by one, I will regain territory. I'll have a half-empty tank. I can start filling it up with pretty corals and make it nice.
What type of nems are they?
I call them nano nems. They're just little bubble tips.
Okay. Double tips are beautiful, but I don't think I'd put one in a mixed reef again. That was like one of my lessons learned. Like a nem tank or a nano, 100%. But if you're doing a mixed reef, they can sit in the same spot for like a year and then one day be like, nope, don't like it anymore. I'm going to go crawl all over your acros and sing them all day.
Yeah, I just want to keep the rose in there and a sea bay. I want to leave those two in there, but everything else I want gone. And I've got a section right now of bird's nest that's probably 2.5 feet by 2.5 feet.
Yep.
Just a pure block of bird's nest. And it's really funny is that it has not spread elsewhere in my tank. You know, they always say, oh, you should be really careful with, you know what? I'm mixing it up with Pasillipora.
Yeah.
Pasillipora is the one that throws the babies. But I don't have them popping up elsewhere. They are literally just this giant umbrella over the reef. And so they're affecting light, getting to everything underneath. Like you said before, it's the exact same thing.
Yep.
It's on a bigger scale.
No, that's true. It's funny because before, because I had the radiones on my tank, and with the stock lenses, it was actually really good for growth underneath the corals because it bounced a ton of light off the glass. Yeah. But I changed it to the narrow lenses to kill light spill, which is not as good for the base of the colonies, but got rid of a lot of light spill. So it's a trade-off on that one.
Are those the ones you printed?
No, well, I do have little shades on them that I printed as well, but I also changed it to the narrow lens kit. Which is more G4-ish style lenses in a way.
Yeah.
But that was strictly for light spill, just trying to keep more light in the tank. And I lowered my lights pretty close to the water level. So I lost a lot of that bounce light that I used to have. So trade-off.
Yeah. So you're not being blinded.
No, it's good.
Yeah.
It's all a trade-off. Yeah. So new tank, you're dealing in the background. So since we're talking about kind of long-term reefing pro tips. So right now, like you're dealing with some of the algae and stuff in the new tank. What do you normally do about it? Do you just be like, meh, it's fine, it'll go away eventually, add cleanup crew?
No.
Manually?
Matter of fact, by now it should have been gone. I've been running this tank for quite a while, coming up on nearly a year probably. But when I got it, it came with a fistful of hair algae, just big globs of it. So I did my thing where I lower the phosphate level in the tank with Phosphate RX, and then I started plucking it out, and it came off pretty easily. But then I just ignored it instead of adding a bunch of hungry snails. I probably bought a few from the fish store, but not nearly enough.
Yeah.
My rule of thumb is always one critter per gallon. And, that's a 20-gallon tank. So I needed 20 critters.
Yeah.
And I probably put in 3 or 4, which is not nearly enough. And so it came back. I plucked some more. It was gone. And then it kind of came back again. I was like, yeah, it's because I'm not taking it down to the rock like I should be.
Yeah, that's fair.
I'll place an order with like reef cleaners or something, get a big stash, and I'll scatter it through all the tanks. And that because I've got a little tank here, this little 1 gallon right there. And then I got that one there, and I've got Caitlin's Reef, and then I got the 400-gallon.
Yep.
So
4 tanks.
Well, yeah, and then there's a frag tank that I'm going to tear down. I've been talking about forever.
5 tanks.
And I want to tear that one down and build a new one, so when I start pulling corals out of the 400-gallon reef, I have somewhere to put them. Because right now I have a 60-gallon frag tank that is holding, I don't know, 10,000 Mahanos.
That's a good
so stash. I don't dare put anything in that tank because I don't want the Mahanos to get on those things and spread them worse. I just need to tear it down.
Yep. No, fair enough. Just disconnect it, start fresh.
A new tank. Yeah. I'm going to get a new one that's smaller and leave room for a quarantine tank next to it.
Nice. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
So I was way off. I just looked on YouTube. Apparently my Nano is like close to a year old now. So it's older.
Okay. Yeah.
In the beginning, though, it was just brute force algae removal.
Yes.
Yeah, brute force, manually, me doing it, and then a mixture of just spot treating hydrogen peroxide.
Yeah.
Which worked, and now there's none in there. The only issue I have now is the little vermitid snails. Or tube worms. So I added a bunch of bumblebees, so they're slowly taking them out.
Okay. You're not going to try the coral snow approach?
I don't know. I might. It's a Nano. I had a bunch of bumblebees because I already bought them for the other tank, so I just threw in 4 or 5 of them in a 14, 15-gallon tank. So they've been doing a fantastic job in there.
Yeah.
Yep. I had Aptasia in there too. I added some Bergia. No more Aptasia, which is great.
Good job.
Yep. Now, the sad thing was I thought I could move them to my next tank to get rid of Aptasia afterwards, but I think all my little hermit crabs and all my little creatures ate them. Because I only ever found one that I moved over, so.
Okay. One.
Yeah, I never considered that, but,
Yeah.
I added tons of cool crabs and, purple zebra stripe snails and like all kinds of weird little creatures. And yeah, so I kind of theorized that they snacked on the Bergia as an unforeseen side effect. I think so.
Or they could have gone down the drain and they're hanging out in the refugium or something.
I mean, hopefully. Maybe I'll find a slew of babies back there one day.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Well, I know.
Yeah.
So, long-term success. What do you think are some of the keys to a tank not shutting down, someone sticking with it, going for the long haul?
Good silicone.
That's fair. Yes, that would be a good one. Leaks are not your friend.
Get a tank that doesn't fail. That would be the first step.
Wise.
And then, not thinking this is some kind of temporary hobby. I mean, for example, I talk about it a lot because it's real. My Nassau Tang, I got her in 2004. She's been in my possession for more than 20 years.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And if I was like, I think I'll just take the tank down and take a break. What do you do with your fish?
Yeah, they've had for 20 years.
Yeah, exactly. I have maintained tanks the entire time to keep her healthy and alive. And I was talking about this on my channel over the last few weeks, that she was starting to lose a lot of weight. And I thought she was going to die. Her stomach was sunken in. I was seeing a rib cage. And even though they are known to live up to 35 years, I was like, I think this is going to wrap up early. So I was trying to target feed her and actually hold food in front of her and let her eat from my hand. And then when I was watching that process, I was seeing that she would bite something and then spit it out. Or if I put something in the tank for her to chase, she would go after it, but then she'd miss. Like she wouldn't get the food in her stomach.
Yeah.
So she was emaciated and she was weak because of it. So I chose a different tack. I decided to go ahead and use 2 different devices in my tank to hold nori. And I was putting in 2 nori stations a day for my tank. So now my phosphates are 0.75 because I'm phosphating like crazy.
Yep.
But my Nassau is nice and fat again. So, and she's also much more active and she's able to go for food. And I'm like,
that's promising.
Okay. So interestingly, I mean, the solution was more food in the tank.
Yeah.
And when I was talking with someone today at Neptune, they happened to call me up and we were on the phone and he was looking at my system and goes, well, your phosphate's pretty high. And he said, because we were talking about the NP and about the way the test vial in there will discolor over time from the numerous tests. Here's something you probably don't know, Devin.
Do tell.
So in the Trident NP, the spot where it does the actual test for the nitrate and phosphate, that vial in my tank for a while there was staying clean for quite a while. And then it started to turn green. I said, I probably should clean this. And I followed the steps in the software to clean the vial. And it said right on the screen, if you did not get the prompt in Fusion to do this, stop now.
Really?
So I was like, all right, never mind. And I hit stop. I was like, forget it. I won't do it. I'll do it later.
Huh.
Anyway, I learned today that the vial, if your phosphate levels are not high, if they're kind of where they need to be like a normal human being and not like Mark, that the vial is self-cleaning because of the acidic nature of the chemicals. And I was like, that is so cool. So when it's running a test, it's actually cleaning its own vial because that stuff is acid. And I was like, that's awesome. I love that. Too bad I'm not that person. Mine's green. I'm going to have to take it apart and clean it.
That's fair. I cleaned mine. I was getting a testing error though, so I was like, "What the heck?" So I popped it apart and flushed out the lines and flushed out the little manifold, and then it was kind of cloudy, that little vial. So I was like, I might as well clean this. So I Q-tipped to give a little scrub, and now it's all working again magically. So I didn't follow any prompts, but I did clean mine, and it did easy fix. And then similar thing, eventually on my other Trident happened, in the recent history where it was a calcium test error. So same thing, I popped it apart, and one of the solenoids were a little sticky, so I fixed that. It took 20 minutes.
How'd you fix it?
Super easy, actually. I just took it apart and popped out the solenoid, and it was a bit sticky. So I popped out of the little housing. There's 4 screws, took it apart, just used a little Q-tip, cleaned it all out. Good as new. So
didn't have to put grease or anything on it?
No, it was just, I think something leaked a little bit at some point in time, and it was just a little bit of stuff in it. So just a little bit of RODI dipped Q-tip and just gave it a quick little scrub, reassembled, and works perfect now. So It was easy to do. Like a lot of these things, if someone has an error, like a little bit of maintenance goes a long way.
Yeah.
And most people are scared about it, but it's really easy to take it apart. I mean, it's 4 screws on the bottom, and pressure pop it out, and 4 screws on the pump, and then it's apart. So it was pretty easy to do and quick fix. So it's good.
Yeah, it's not my favorite. It's not my favorite to take apart, but I mean, yeah, it can definitely be done.
It's not bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
By the way, in the background, I have a huge thunderstorm happening outside. So
that's what that
if I suddenly blink away, that might be why. But who knows? We'll see what happens tonight. But I can hear the thunder and light. I can hear. Yeah, I can hear the thunder. I'm not seeing the lightning because I got the window covered. But
sounds exciting.
It's very active out there right now.
Have you?
So anyway, you were talking about different ways of maintaining your older tank,
and tips to get to an old tank.
Well, number one, keep the tank intact.
Yes. Wise.
And inspect it. Actually look at it, check the seams. If you see a spot that makes you nervous, take a picture, and then weeks from now or a month from now, 2 months from now, take a picture of the exact same spot and compare the two photos. Did it get worse? That's just something I do. I always try to be hyper aware of the condition, the lifespan of the aquarium itself.
Yeah.
And then, the other part, I just keep I've said this forever, keep your hands out of the tank. And a lot of new hobbyists are constantly in their fussing with it and touching stuff and the oils from their skin. I mean, everything, the deodorant in their armpit, whatever. I mean, things are just getting in the tank, and you just have these general issues that just keep coming up that I'm not seeing because my hands aren't in the tank. I'm barely putting in food, And so my tank just runs on autopilot. It grows like a wild reef. People come over and they say, man, it looks so natural. I'm like, it's because I just let it kind of do what it wants. I don't sit there and try and make it look like a manicured garden, like some people do. And I understand why people like to do that. I've seen their tanks. They're gorgeous. I kind of I like to see what things can do on their own. I try not to call the reef too often. That's why it seems like every 4 years I've got to just really attack it and clean it out and make a ton of space and then start growing things out again. But within if you do everything right and you maintain stability in the tank, in 9 months, your tank's starting to look full. And, at 15 months, you're just like, you can sort of tell, but you can hardly tell that the tank has changed, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I know it does. I'm kind of with you on that one. I prefer to have a nice grown out, mature looking tank. Like I think it just looks so much more natural and not a bonsai tank. But same thing. I'm running to that now where it's like I just don't have space, and I'm like, this one coral's a third of my tank. I'm like, do I need that much of it? Like, as cool as it is, it's also nice to
Devin was asking me if I had any pictures that weren't blue, and I was like, no, I'm using blue to hide all the sins right now.
Oh, I understand.
Let me see if I can find you a normal picture real quick here. Okay, a second.
That was supposed to be for the thumbnail. It doesn't help me now, but if you have
it's not for I was just gonna throw it. People are like, well, does he even have a tank anymore? Like, for example, this picture right here.
There's one in the background, so I know one exists.
This picture right here. Does that come up on the screen? I guess there's probably a delay, but that is not what my tank looks like anymore.
Where did you send it?
I just stuck it on my screen. It's supposed to just show up on yours, I would think, but maybe it won't. Because I'm using my eCam for a virtual camera, but maybe it won't cooperate.
Depends if you pick the right source.
I don't know. Good call. Yeah. When I picked it, but it might not have picked what I thought it picked.
Do you want me to change it for you to eCam, virtual camera?
Can you do that for me?
I can request it. You have to say accept.
All right. Let's see what happens.
We got 2 options. Let's try this one first.
I'll just say yes.
Trust me.
Okay.
And if it didn't work, then there's one.
Right click for additional options. Mirror video. Look at all these choices. Strange.
All right, you're frozen. Let me try this other option.
But can you hear me or no?
Yeah, I can hear you, but you're frozen. Okay, I tried a different camera. Click accept.
Okay, just a second. Okay, there's me.
You're moving. Perfect.
Okay, let's see if this thing happens if I drag it on here again. Yeah, there we go.
Ooh.
So that was my tank a couple of years ago, and it was great and all this stuff. And now I just have one giant patch of that bird's nest you're looking at right there. The green stuff, it's everywhere, and this red is gone, that green one's gone, that one's gone, the purple one's gone. They're all gone. So
it was just a rainbow of everyone growing over everyone.
It's a rainbow of green at this point. It's blah. But like this one here, I still have this is actually gorgeous, and it's doing quite well in my tank.
That's a beauty.
For some reason, they call it yellow tip, but it's purple tip.
Yeah, it's
So,
definitely purple tip. Which
I
coral is
don't
that
know
one?
why they'd call it a yellow tip. Makes no sense. And I've got a little speck of red dragon left over that has been avoiding the tentacles.
Mm-hmm.
I've got some acro. I've got some, I got some Montes, and here's that lovely bird's nest again. Hang on, let me get rid of this. Put this in here. Here's a chunk. I mean, that's like 4 inches of my 60 inches of square footage of
When I first started reefing, someone gave me a bunch of that, and I was so happy for free. I was like, "Yeah, I got corals for free," and it's like,
right.
It's a nice bright green.
Yeah.
Yep.
Here's another one I've got that I have in my tank. It's nice. I like it.
That's nice.
So this one here, it's interesting. But at this point, my tank is very mundane and boring to me. It's just like, and I just want it to be pretty, and it's not.
So, in your mind, what would you change? What would you do to make it prettier if it's not pretty to you?
Well, first of all, the reset. Like I said, I'll have to go in there and take out giant colonies that are just eating up tons of real estate and just make space, like you talked about earlier, for flow in your own tank. I got to do the same thing. And then the second thing I need to do, while everything's out of my way, is attack the sand bed and just do a big gravel vac, because it's the perfect opportunity. Remove 150 stray anemones that don't belong.
Yep.
And that's not even a fake number. It's probably 150 of those. They're about this big. There's a whole bunch of them.
How do you plan on removing them?
They peel off real easy.
You
You just pull them off.
I remember
they don't hold on like other ones.
Okay. So I remember a big bubble tip, and if it's flat rock, you can like wedge your fingernail under or your finger and just slowly massage it and annoy it and get it off.
Yeah.
But if they're in a nook and cranny, like, good luck.
Yeah.
I had one that I took, those like thermoplastics where you could put in hot water and like mold it to stuff?
Yes.
Marine
to
Depot
melt.
used to sell it. I don't know who does now, but I took that and I built a big cone over top of it, so it was forced to come out of the cone. And then I went to go pop it off, and it still had its foot way down. So then I built a second cone on top of it. So it literally had to come out like 5 inches to get to light, and then I could pop it out and get it out. But yeah, it was a bugger. So
your cone system sounds a lot like the anemone cannon that I saw on Reef to Reef, where you take a sponge, like a big, huge sponge, like they use to wipe tile down when they're installing tile. Those are those cheap, giant orange sponges. And you poke a hole through it, and you jam like an 1.5 inch piece of PVC pipe through it.
Yeah.
I don't know what that is. Let's see. That would be like 5 centimeters. I'm trying to talk Canadian for you.
My mind thinks an inch is more than centimeters, so you're safe.
And you just put this thing on top of the anemone, and the anemone will climb up the PVC pipe, and then you just pluck it out of the tank.
Nice.
So your funnel thing sounds very similar.
Yeah, that I took thermoplastic, and then I could build, like, wrap it around, make a bit of a cone, and I just push on the rock and mold it to it. So it's only options to crawl through my little tunnel.
That's great. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah.
That was
this cannon thing was a great idea, because you basically just either tether it down, rubber banded, zip tied, whatever, just to wedge the sponge in place. And it has to crawl up the pipe to get to the light and get out there. And you just move it around from spot to spot to spot.
Perfect. 150 times.
Well, these aren't that big. So like I said, I can just peel them off. It's no big deal.
That's fair. So what are you going to do with them all? Are you going to put them in an enemy cube and just have monsters?
Well, that's where they came from initially. To be honest, I need someone that wants 150 of them. I might be able to like do something with like Tidal Gardens or ACI Aquaculture. Say, hey, you guys want to?
Well, Than's in the stream and Amanda's in the stream.
Yeah.
So if you guys need a whole slew of tiny anemones, you know where to go. Good deal.
Yeah, I'd like to, because I don't want to throw them in the trash. But the problem is, if I throw them in another tank, like you said, the anemone cube, they're going to look for rock to hold on to, and they're not going to find any. They're going to end up going down the drain and into the sump, and then back in my return, and then back in the reef tank again. And that's how one got in the first place. Someone went through the RFG and shot into the tank and made himself comfortable, and then made buddies.
That's funny. Love it.
Yeah, there's way too many. I mean, it looks good. There's lots of tentacles moving. It's interesting. Clownfish can go wherever they want.
Yep.
But they've stung a lot of stuff I cared about, and I just didn't let it bother me. I was like, whatever, and then whatever becomes, I should never have let that happen.
So big mixed reef, you would not add a bunch of those little anemones again.
No, they wouldn't go in the big tank. No,
Yep.
No, they're fine in the anemone cube. They're pretty in there. Matter of fact, when the anemone cube becomes its own entity once more, which I'm hoping to do in mid-February, then I'm going to have roses in there. I'm going to have the original one that I bought in 2003. So that's 22 years old. the tan one with the white tips, and then I'm gonna have these really pretty like sparkly ones that are kind of like peach pink. They're pretty, and I'd like to have those 3 or 4 types in there, and that's it. And I just kind of limit it down because I know they're going to spread and make more of themselves anyway and fill the tank. But I'd just like to have a little bit of a breather for once instead of just a tank packed with tentacles wall to wall.
Yeah, that's fair.
You know,
I have these freaking minty zoas in my tank that are the bane of my existence because they take over everything that I wish they never made it in. So I have to find a way to evict them at some point.
Those are harder.
I know. I don't know if I can just peel, because some zoas you can grab some and just peel them out. But I don't know.
Don't lick them.
No. You know, that zoas are very easy, for the most part, pretty beginner's coral. Some definitely have paleotoxins. You know, don't be handling them with the cuts on your skin. Don't be rubbing your eyes after. People definitely gotten sick from it. So that's a good consideration for long-term success in the hobby.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
Them tanks fill up fast. They definitely can. Any advice on keeping an NPS tank? Feed very heavy and do lots of water changes.
Yeah.
Thoughts, water changes. That's a good one. New systems definitely appreciate regular, frequent water changes. I mean, old ones appreciate it too, but they're less critical. I recently started doing my auto water changes again.
Okay.
Just for like good measure. I'm trying to get my tank. I'm trying to be a little more in love with my tank. I finally set off an ICP test last week too.
There you go.
These are things like long term. You're like, okay, what am I depleted on? You know, is my dosing off? It's good stuff to check up on.
Yeah.
Yep.
So how much are you changing per month, percentage wise?
4,000 or 5,000 mils. It's like a gallon a day out of 200. So 30 divided by 200, 15%. And then I'll do the odd manual one when I'm motivated. Which tank? That's on the water box. That is the only one that is plumbed to my mixing station. The rest are separated. So I'll randomly do like a manual one. I'm going to try and be good and do one like once every month or so. And then I can do my Nano as well as the Nios, which is turning into the Goni tank. So
I saw that.
That's kind of my goal. I love it. I'm up to like 20 or so different Gonis, and I'm still hunting for more.
Good job.
Yep. It'll be the most glorious Goni tank ever is my goal. Just a rainbow of little Goni polyps.
That's nice. Well, if you get stuck or you have problems, you might reach out to Jason Langer. He's a huge Goni lover and has dealt with a lot of different disease stuff and so forth.
Good to know.
So he might be able to give you some tips if you run into a problem. I've never had luck with Gonis. I had one that I got years ago that was okay, but then and he was doing fine, but I stung it with a lot of Kalkwasser paste accidentally trying to kill Aptasia, and it didn't recover. I was like, oh,
no.
One time I had one that was actually easy. I messed it up anyway.
Dang. So I had one melt on me, but the rest of them pretty good. I think the one that melted was like probably a fresh import too, so that was probably related. I did, for whatever reason, they've been pretty good for me. I've had 3 of my Nano that I bought as tiny frags, and now they're massive.
Yeah.
So that kind of upped my Goni confidence. And then in my Nano tank, I was like, okay, only Gonis in the Nano, which obviously failed, and there's a bunch of other stuff now.
Yeah.
And then that, I was like, okay, I failed on that one, so I'm going to do it on the Nios now. So now the Nios has turned to a Goni tank. So
are you using that Goni power food?
No, I should probably get some and try it.
Or Reef, or what are you using to feed them?
Mysis.
Really?
Reef
okay.
nutrition stuff.
Hey, if it's working, it's working. That's great.
Yep, so far so good. Yeah, for the most part, I just broadcast feed my tanks. Daily is mysis, and then I have a bunch of the reef nutrition stuff, like the little clam eggs, whatever they're called.
Oyster Feast?
Yeah, Oyster Feast, and some of the other random ones. Like I'll randomly put that in like once a week, and some Fido and different stuff, and I just broadcast feed the tank, and it just feeds everything. And I do that for all my tanks.
Yeah.
I will randomly get motivated and feed it like Reefroids and some of the other powder foods like Reef Blizzard and Reefroids. I have a bit of a mix. I just dumped a bunch together and mix it up. So it's a bit of a special blend of stuff. But
is Reef Blizzard when you turn your vortex on 100%?
That's one of the products from Brightwell.
I don't know that one.
Okay, but they have different particulate sizes, so they have up to super tiny ones.
Yeah.
But I basically just mixed a bunch of super tiny particulate food together, some different sizes. So it's good for broadcast feeding because, different particle sizes, different mouths, and, some corals might want different ones.
Yeah. I put in a lot of Reef in my 400 gallon for a long time. Now I don't dare because I would feed all those anemones. I cannot give them more power.
Do you know what? So broadcast feeding, great for fish, great for corals, not great for Aptasia. That's why I had 8,000 Aptasia in my IOS tank. So I used 2 boxes of Aptasia on it like last week and took out like probably 90% of them. So I just went to town on them, and there's still a couple more I got to get. But
I wish I had known that you were going to mention that product. I would have shown you the original box that it came in.
Do you have it?
Yes. I'd have to go get it. You want me to go get it?
If it's close.
All right. I'll grab it.
I want to try Goni now. My nutrients are in line. Goni's actually like a bit higher nutrients. So, if your nutrients are high, I wouldn't worry too much. Like my nutrients are high in the water box. In that tank, I think I'm at 0.3 phosphate, something like that. And my nitrates are 650 or 60. I don't know. Maybe they're 40 to 60 range. So they're high nutrients. So
And back.
Goni's in there are perfectly happy. Welcome back.
Ready?
Yes. Ooh, I figured it was something like the... That's awesome.
It's blurred out. It's blurred out.
That's funny. All right.
And it's a black hand because Frank is black. So
I mean,
it's so funny to me.
He's still on the side. He's more just like flexing, like, yeah. But honestly, out of all the Aptasia killing products, this is the best, like hands down.
This is actually the original bottle too.
Still good?
No, I've had it for. Oh, it's on the bottle. That's awesome.
Nice.
I forgot that.
Yep.
Yeah. So when he came out with this, I tried it out. It totally worked.
Yep.
This is basically just like stone at this point, but it's been in my fish room for many, many years.
That's awesome.
But I like the pink version because it's coralline colored. And I cover up Aptasia. I only have Aptasia in one spot on my 400 gallon, and that's where my copper band cannot get to. It's just there's a thing in the way.
That's fair.
The back to your question about what can you do to keep your tank long term. Obviously, stability is the #1 rule of reef keeping, and the more you keep your tank stable, the more likely it will live forever. But that includes, as you know, and you've talked about on your channel many, many times, all the different ways to have emergency prep for whatever can go wrong. And if you are prepared for every possible contingency, your reef will live forever.
So what would you say are the most common things that could require you to have a backup? Like heater failure is supposedly one of the more common ones. I don't know if I've ever had a heater die, to be honest.
They can die in the on position. They can die in the off position. They could just leak and just be ruined. Just water got into them, and you're like, oh, let me get this out of my tank.
That's fair. So I have always had the mentality that I use heater controllers on most tanks, not my Nano, but the rest of the tanks I use one. And whenever I use a heater controller, I set the thermostat higher than the heater controller. So the heater controller does all the work. Because usually if a heater dies, it's usually the thermostat that dies. So if it never gets a workout, I figure it will last much, much longer. That's my mentality, at least.
Okay.
What do you think?
I've had the same 3 heaters in my sump now for probably 10 years.
Many moons? Still going strong?
Probably. I mean, I guess tank stays the right temperature. So, I mean, yeah, it's working.
Perfect.
But when we had our big bad ice storm a couple of years, 4 years ago, 2021, I had 2 more heaters as backup, and I threw them in the sump as well. And so when my house was a mere 57 degrees inside, my reef was 77.
Yeah.
It didn't skip a beat because I was putting in 1,500 watts of power into the tank.
It's a good chunk.
So yeah, having, you said, what do you want to protect against? Everything can fail. Your light can fail. Literally, you have a light go out. And if you don't have the $600 to $800 for a new light fixture, part of your reef is dark for a while. How long can you go with leaving it dark? And I have done this in the past where I had a light failure, and I'd rip open a brand new radio from my shop and stick it over the tank just to light it. Like, I'll deal with whatever I have to order, but in the meantime, you're getting a brand new light today. Congratulations, tank.
It's nice that you have that option.
Yeah.
Most people don't have an aquarium shop on hand. But yeah, no, that is definitely a nice option. That's not something I would think of to keep a spare on hand, but that is a good point.
The light is key. I mean, come on. Everything's growing because of the light.
It's true.
So having something, I mean, in the past with metal halides and, the pendants, they can't fail. It's a piece of metal. But the socket that the bulb screws into, I had extra sockets. I had extra bulbs. I had extra ballast to power the socket.
Yep.
And, no matter what, I was ready to rock and roll and swap something out. The pumps can fail. I always tell people, if I was just on the phone with somebody yesterday who's getting a new setup, and he says, I'm putting in 2 return pumps because redundancy. And I said, actually, I just want you to have 1 return pump in the sump, and I want 1 in the closet.
Brand new.
I said, unless you're going to travel and you're going to be gone 2 weeks at a time, that's the time. But I said, look, okay, let's say you set up a tank with 2 return pumps, like, BRS recommends. If you are not cognizant that one has failed and your tank's just limping along on 1 other pump, the day that the other one goes dead, you suddenly have no flow.
Yep.
You have to at least be aware if water's coming out of all your pumps. And so in my case, I've always had extra wet sides for my vortex, and I can just take a dirty one off, stick a clean one on, soak the dirty one, and I keep the flow in the tank. I have back my return pump is the Abyss, so it's a very expensive return pump. Comes with a 10-year warranty, so I kind of feel like it's bulletproof. But to have a second Abyss is a tough pill to swallow. It's it's $2,000 on the shelf. So I bought a external $500 pump from MRC that has never seen the light of day. I opened up the box, I looked at it, and I thought, okay, how can I preserve this? Like they do with a mummy. And so I wrapped it with saran wrap so no air could get to it. And then I closed the box up and it's just set aside. But the day I need to use that pump, I'm going to have to drill a hole inside of my sump, install a bulkhead, hook up plumbing, because it will be a complete change from my setup right now.
Yeah, so ideally, if you have the identical pump, the couplers, everything to screw up quick and easy.
Yeah, you just stole what I was going to say. You're 100% right. You want to be able to swap. So this guy I'm on the phone with yesterday said, look, here's what I'd like you to do. Get yourself, if you got the 2 pumps, that's fine. Use 1 for your return pump. Use the other as a manifold pump to feed all your reactors, and then put the 3rd one on the shelf. And if you want to rotate through them through cleaning cycles, and you take this one off the shelf, you put it in here, it's a return pump. Take this one and you put it on the manifold. You take the manifold and you put it in acid and clean it and put it back on the shelf. At least everything matches, all the fittings align. It's real easy to connect and disconnect. And you can dial things up percentage-wise to whatever flow rate you need, because most pumps these days are DC driven. There's a lot of benefits, but a lot of people just buy the absolute only what I need today. I need 3 lights and I need 1 pump. I need 1 heater. I'm like, oh, actually, you need 2 heaters. Because you want to have half the wattage on each heater. So that way, there was a guy 2 weeks ago on Facebook, and he posted that his tank was 97 degrees and everything was dying, and he was able to rescue a couple of fish, which I couldn't believe he saved anything.
That's hot.
And I did ask him, what size is your tank? But he didn't reply to me. And so I'm just assuming he had a really big heater on a smallish tank. Because it takes a lot to make a tank 97 degrees. Yeah.
I'm with you. 100% agree. Always buy 2 half-size heaters instead of 1, whatever the wattage is. Because if one gets stuck on, it doesn't have the power to cook your tank. And if one dies, the other one can keep it limpid along. So,
but if you have oversized, and if you have 2 oversizeds, you literally have twice as much opportunity to fry your tank, to cook it. So instead, you want to have the half wattage, because, so let's say my tank's 100 gallons and I want 300 watts of heat. That means I want 250 watt heaters. If 150 watt heater sticks in the on position and just never turns off, my tank might rise an extra degree or 2, but it'll never keep climbing and climbing. It'll just kind of be like, that's weird. It's a little bit warm. And so then you start looking at the heaters and you look at the light, and that light never turns off. I'm going to pull that out and clean it or replace it. So that's one, that's really important. You've done videos on battery backups, to keep everything running when the power goes out before you pull out the generator. These are all part of keeping a tank long-term.
I bought a generator a year or 2 ago. I've never used it. I've never even put the oil in it. I took it out of the box.
Please do that.
No.
Please put the oil in it. Yes.
Well, before I use it.
Yeah. Build the thing and have it ready.
Well,
and then
I have the bottle there.
Fuel
You
in the
just dump
day
it
you
in.
turn it on.
No, but I bought one that's tri-fuel, so I can plug it into my barbecue hookup for natural gas.
There you go. That's good too.
No.
Natural gas, propane gas, fuel. Gasoline. Yep.
So that's there. So thankfully, I've never had to use it. Battery backups have always got me by the power outages. They haven't been, multiple days where I've had to resort to the generator. But long term, power outages are likely going to happen. Depends where you live. Some places it could be because of fires. It could be because of storms. There's lots of reasons that could take out power.
Could be a bad driver.
Yep, exactly.
You know, like hits a pole in your neighborhood and just wipes out power to the block. You know, that happens.
Yep. So having flow in your tank is, if you're out of power, having flow is one of the most critical things in your tank, because that's what provides oxygen to everything.
Right.
So I'm always a big fan of battery backups for power heads. I think that goes a long way to saving a tank. So long term, I think that's very important. And if you're somewhere that gets frequent or long term power outages, then looking to a generator is probably a good idea.
Yeah.
Especially with a large tank.
So yeah, if you own a brand new generator, you should really do yourself a favor. No, seriously, you know, I'm not talking to you, but I mean anyone. If you go and you buy a generator, having it new in the box in the garage is not your friend. Because in a crisis, when the power's out and everything's pitch dark and it's a storm and it's cold or it's hot or whatever, and you can't see what you're doing to follow the instructions of how to put it together, because it's not just put in oil. It's usually you got to connect this handle, install these wheels, put the oil in.
It's built.
It's built, but there's a few accessories you got to put on yourself. Very rarely do they put all the parts on.
No, I put the wheels on. Like, it's out of the box.
Okay,
it's
you
assembled.
did that. Okay, good.
I should probably throw a battery tender on the battery and make sure it's full, because it's been sitting for a year or two.
Yes.
That's likely very important. I should get my button gear on that. But
what they tell you in the instructions is that you're supposed to run it for 20 minutes once a month. And when you're doing that, it will charge that battery. So the batteries are ready to start, which is nice.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so the battery, I should put a little solar panel on my shed just to keep the battery always full.
You could do that.
But,
or you could just buy a new battery once a year since you never want to turn it on.
I mean, I have other batteries. It's not like I don't have a way to plug it in. I have like some lithium.
And then they usually have a rope you can pull too, you know, like a lawnmower.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
So there's another way of doing it. But if you could test it when the weather's decent, like I did recently, it's so much better than when you're in the midst of the emergency and you need the power and you're just like, oh, and I did. I tested mine. Now mine's, I got in 2021 right after the big storm. And when I tested it a few weeks ago, it turned on like it should, but 5 minutes later when I went out there to check on it, it turned off. And that's weird. So I turned it on again, and I went and got a shop vac to plug into it to give it a little bit of a load, like a vacuum cleaner. And I just turned that on and I walked away, and then I walked outside again 5 minutes later and it was off again. I was like, okay, that's twice. That's not good.
No.
And so I tried to start a third time. This time it wouldn't start. And then I saw fuel pouring out of the front where the intake filter is of the carburetor. It's like a big sponge. And there's, I mean, since air is being sucked in, I didn't understand how gas could come out. But it was pouring out on the ground. There's a little puddle.
Dang.
So I knew there was an issue. And I looked at the fuel lines. Nothing was cracked. Nothing was broken. Nothing was brittle. I was like, all right. Turns out, from my friend, he said the float valve inside the bottom of the carburetor has failed or is clogged or is dirty from your bad fuel. So you should just go ahead and take it apart and clean it. And I was like, okay. And as I was trying to take it apart, he says, you know what? Look at this. And he showed me on Amazon. There was my exact carburetor for $27.
Yeah.
He says, you can have it at 8 in the morning. You could literally have it tomorrow morning. And I was like, okay. And so I just did add to cart. It added some tax. For $30, I got a brand new carburetor. It arrived the next morning. I put that onto the generator. I went ahead and changed the oil in my generator that hadn't been changed yet. And did a couple other things. Oh, I checked the spark plug, make sure it was nice and clean and gapped properly. And then I ran it. And I ran it for like a good solid hour or so on the Reef and let it just take care of everything, make sure it works right before I'm stuck in a situation like tonight when it's pouring down rain and I got to run out there and turn on a generator. That's fair. I'm just saying it's good to at least try it out on a good weather day when things are simple.
Yeah, no, that is wise. That is a smart thing. I should probably test mine, make sure it works. I'm just assuming it works because it's brand new. But
no, you should. I mean, just like you tested your battery array. You bought all brand new batteries. You bought your tender. You hooked up your wires. You're like, yeah, it's all brand new. It's going to be fine. But no, you put it through its paces and you wanted to prove it. And you filmed it. So I'm literally giving you content for your channel. You can go test your generator and film it and say, oh my God, it's working perfectly.
When it stops being so cold out, I'll take you up on it.
And you can say, this is the shortest video I've ever done. I told you it would work fine, Mark. And then, that's the end of the video.
All right. I'll see what I can do on that one. Do you have a hookup to plug into your house somewhere? Or do you just run a cord through? I do not.
No, I used to do this whole thing where it was super dangerous, but I knew how to do it. Yeah. But I mean, like if this isn't gonna get me in trouble because I'm on your channel in Canada, but I used to have it rigged up to where, in theory, if I made a mistake, my generator power could have gone backwards through the power and killed a linesman, who's trying to do his job.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I would never do that. But at the same time, humans do make mistakes, and you could forget to like flip off a breaker when you're turning this on.
You don't have that little jiggy thing that forces you to only have one on at a
I
time?
have that now. So I
Okay.
bought that about actually, I probably bought it 3 years ago, and it took a whole year to get my friend Bobby to come over and help me install it. And we hooked that up. It's got this switch over like you're talking about. And then there's this huge outlet that might go on the side of an RV. And that is mounted on the bottom. And then I have this giant, expensive 75-foot cord that goes into the garage, through the wall, through the shed, out to the generator with these giant plugs that look like brass knuckles that you shove in there on each end.
Yeah.
And, well, no, it's on the generator that way. On the other side, it plugs in and you twist a lock to lock it in place. And so I've got this really nice, clean, super safe system.
Nice.
And when it does it, I'm providing power to 6 circuits at once.
Yeah. I like
Then I can run an extension cord from the fish room to this room and power the computer monitors, the aquariums, the router or whatever. Yep. I can run it off because the fish room has lots of empty plugs I can plug things into.
Perfect. That's good. One day I'll get there.
It keeps all the fumes out of your house when you actually make that type of connection.
Yep.
If you're trying to run extension cords from a generator through the doorways or through a window, the fumes coming off the machine can come into your home, and I'd get headaches. It just happened. I will try to close things up as much as possible. You couldn't completely close it, but now with my whole new system, I'm completely safe.
That is way better. One day I'll get a generator hookup, like a proper one, so I don't have to like jankily pop a cord through a window.
If you go to my YouTube channel and look for the video I probably uploaded about a year ago, it shows exactly how I did it with all my connections, and you can see it all.
I'll hunt
and
it
you
down.
might get inspired by that one because it was. And the sad part is that's a really good video. It was well edited. It was not long like my normal live streams. It was like, I don't know, 12 minutes. It was a quick one, right? And it got like 1,500 views. I'm like, man, the one video everyone should be watching, and they're not. I'm like, okay.
I know.
All right.
That happens.
I told you so. I warned y'all.
That happens. Okay. Reef Keeper Phil, question for you in the chat, because I know you have solar on in your house. I know you have a generator. I put solar on my house, which is wonderful in the summertime, crappy in the winter in Canada. But the solar shuts off if you have a power outage, so it doesn't backfeed to the grid. So I wonder if I put a generator on with the solar, it reactivates the solar. Is there some risk of me like overpowering things? I still got to figure that out. So
you got to ask somebody that knows. That's
I know. That's on my to figure out list before I get to that.
I refuse to get solar. I am 100% against it. I think it's stupid.
Why?
It's not stupid. It's stupid for me.
In the winter, my bills are like $250 and $300 a month. In the summer, I have a $17 connection fee and no bill. It's great. It saves me.
That's nice.
It saves me a lot of money for power.
Yeah, no, I could see that.
Yeah.
But the solar you paid for, that was thousands and thousands of dollars. So, okay, so you have some summers where it's $17 a month, but you paid what? $17,000 or whatever for the solar system, and you're paying payments for 30 years or something awful, right?
No payments paid for. But
paid in full. Good job.
Yeah. Well,
paid for by BRS, right?
No. There was they had like a $5,000 rebate, which is my original motivation to do it.
That's nice.
I think I worked it out though. It saved me $1,600 in power last year.
Okay.
For $16,000 systems. So it's not bad.
Yeah.
Like it's a pretty decent ROI, to be honest.
No, that's good for you, but for me, it's bad. See, I live in Texas. It gets crazy hot here. They want you to cut down all your trees, and you lose all your shade. And I'm not willing to give up my shade. I love shade. It keeps my house cooler in the summer. And, I've insulated the crap out of this house, and I have a really good, well, at the time when I bought it, it was really efficient AC system. And all I care about is kilowatt hours. So, that's my number one. How many kilowatt hours am I using that month? Yeah. And then, of course, what's my rate? My rate where I live is inexpensive right now. So I'm fine with how much power I need.
How much do you pay?
I believe it's a nickel, 5 cents.
Is it?
Yeah, I have a commercial contract for 5 years, but it's expiring this year.
Okay.
So we're going to have to see what they throw at me this year. And I'm not looking forward to the magic because everything's gone up so much. But when I was talking to the electric, it's very cheap. And so, I tend to use about 2,100 kilowatt hours to was it last year? No, 2 years ago. I had a personal best when I used 3,700 kilowatt hours in 1 month. 3,700. That's insane. That's like me acting like I own the mall, And I was just like, wow.
Like 3,100?
3,700.
That's not terrible. Like,
That's unbelievably high for this. That was, like I said, it's my personal best. I've never used that much power in my life.
okay.
And I don't even know how I did it, to be really honest. I mean, obviously I was running the AC, but I just can't believe I burned through that much power.
Okay.
But on average, I tend to do about 2100.
Okay. I think I kilowatts delivered last month, 1480. Okay. So you're more than me.
Yeah.
Have you worked out how much your tanks use in power, roughly?
Oh yeah, I did all that stuff a long time ago.
Yeah.
It's nothing. My tanks use nothing.
Well, no, when
It's
your power
like,
is 5 cents.
well, I'm not even talking about. I'm talking about. Well, yeah, you're right. 5 cent, totally right.
Yeah.
But because that does equate to the math. You're right. Because I think when I did the cost of running my Reef, or maybe it was running everything. I did a video about it, and I think it was like $37 a month was just aquatic related. Now that was before I had these extra tanks here, which adds another 19 watts to my life. I mean, it's nothing, you know. I mean, LED lights, low DC watt pumps. You know, the big offenders are heater, and that tank has a 100-watt heater. Oh no, there's 100 watts. You know, and then this thing has a 6-watt heater, so it's 106 watts. But now I added a hot tub in my backyard, and that thing's plugged in all the time and running all the time.
There's a good $20-30 a month.
So it's probably adding to my electric bill.
Yes. Yeah. So on my, I think the water box was around $40 a month in power, and I think my Niosoft tank's around 30.
Okay.
The Nano I haven't bothered figuring it out, but it's probably like $5-6.
Yeah, I went all in on my math to figure it out. I went to my sky, you know, to my lights, and I said, okay, when they turn on, and they're at like 17%, and I measured the wattage. And then I said, now I'm going to jump to 39%, and I measure the wattage. And then I said, okay, my tank runs at 80% for an hour and a half. So I did the math for just that wattage. And then I did the whole thing across a month, and I wanted to know exactly how much it cost to run my lights. And then every pump on the system and everything plugged in.
You know the Apex, if you have the newer ones, it just tells you your average.
Well, I have the newer one, but it doesn't dial it into that degree.
Okay, fine.
Oh, the outlets, yes, but not your lights. Because my lights aren't plugged into the EBA32s.
Okay.
They're plugged into they're plugged into an EB4, an old school power supply.
Fair enough. I have everything.
That just gives me amps. But no, I hear you on that. I get it.
Okay, so my power is like 14 and point something cents a kilowatt. So yeah, yours is like dirt cheap. It's almost a third of mine.
It's dirt cheap, I know. And people in California, it's like 35 or 39. It's like, holy crap! It's crazy how high their power is there.
Damn. Phil?
And do you know Jim Stein? I think his name is LA Fish Guys. Do you know him?
I know
he ran a YouTube channel for many years called LA Fish Guys.
Yep, I know of him.
So, you know, when all those fires were happening in California, he was talking about how they would just turn off the power in his neighborhood to save power for other people. And I'm like, what does that mean? He goes, they're literally giving power to certain sections at a time.
Is it like round robin? You just get buggered? Like, what the heck?
Apparently, and it was for days. Not like it's off for an hour or something. He was like 3-4 days, and he showed like this big tank he has in his garage that's just lifeless. So he got one of those little Airstone bubblers and hung it on the tank to just have a little bit. I was like, so how can this be? This can't be legal. This is terrible.
This is where battery backups are very important. Yes. And that baby would be on a charger and it'd be running my tank when I was in a power outage.
Well, you and I both have those big arrays of the big 12-volt batteries, or you might have the better one now. But I've got 4 of those 12-volt batteries in my garage. Yep. And they can run my Vector pumps and my Vortec pumps for like 3 days straight on one charge.
Yeah, I have basically like the main staple. I have 100 amp hour lithium iron phosphate on each one just for my power heads, and then that realistically keeps my tank running fine for any normal power outage. And if there's anything extended, I also have a 300 amp hour one I can bust out and hook up. But
this little 1-gallon tank, I mean, it has 3 plugs: the light, the heater, and the power head, right? And it's off right now. It turns off at 7. But I need to plug that into a regular computer UPS, because that little return pump probably pulls like half a watt. Oh, yeah. I just need to keep the circulation going if there's a power outage, because there's a fish in there and he won't be alive if the power goes dead. So I need to order a UPS for that tank. But other than that,
that'd be easy.
Yeah.
It's
kind of a difficult tank to take care of, to be honest. I don't know why I did it.
So, I noticed it a while ago. I was going to say, you sneak another tank in there.
So, I did. I came home from Reef stock with that last year, and I stuck a Blenny in there, a little tiny tank raised Blenny.
Nice. So, okay. So someone's starting a fresh, brand new tank as a reefer. Smaller tanks, for the most part, like with not micro size, but like a nano tank, generally is fairly cheap and inexpensive to start up and run and maintain.
Yes.
If you go too small, that can be more of a challenge.
Like that one.
Yeah. What, in your opinion, for someone starting out, what do you think is like an ideal tank size?
I like the 29, but like that
Yeah.
one in the corner, that water box is a 20-gallon,
Mm-hmm.
and it's an all-in-one. It's a really nice setup. I got it from a guy here locally. He gave it to me,
Mm-hmm.
and it came with an AI Prime. It came with a Tunzi skimmer. It came with a Tunzi return pump. Came with a Cobalt heater. I mean, it had like good gear on it, and then I added the Hydros controller to it just to have another Hydros in my system. And it's just been pretty. I mean, it just runs itself. Once a week, I have to I have to take a sponge out and put a new sponge in, and
Mm-hmm.
empty out the little skimmer collection cup.
I
And
gave,
then once in a blue moon, a water change.
that's fair. I gave up on even putting a sponge in the Nano. I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, this is too much to clean.
I know it's another thing to take care of. And I have he gave me a bag of like the sponges. They were all pre-cut out. So it's just like a Ziploc with like a bunch.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like a year's worth or whatever. I mean, I've been burning through them. So I need to figure out where he got this floss from that's blue on one side and white on the other, and then get the scissors out and make myself another collection of sponges. But it's just another way to trap particulates and some of the fish waste and some of the green hair algae it's trying to, let loose and land elsewhere.
Yep.
If you can trap on the sponge, that's fine with me,
Mm-hmm. That works.
But yeah, that's a small. I am very impressed with the Waterbox 20-gallon
Nice.
because it's essentially silent. It's just not a noisy tank. I mean, I don't hear it at all. I didn't hear it in the living room. In here, I was aware of it only because the light would have a cooling fan that would kick on.
Mm-hmm.
And so during my live streams, I have specific settings from 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock where it doesn't do them anymore to just kind of keep it a little bit more calm.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's all right. It's
Yeah.
good. Silence in a tank is definitely a big thing.
Yeah, especially if it's a bedroom tank.
Yeah.
You're going to want a tank that's quiet within your bedroom.
No, 100%. Or an office.
Yeah.
Or a live stream studio with
or a live stream
microphones for your
studio
content and recording stuff. Yeah, I definitely, anyone that's watched my channel for a long time knows I'm slightly OCD about making my tanks as quiet as possible. So I appreciate that. But
have you been to Tidal Gardens yet?
No, I would love to though.
He's in Ohio. I got to go there for the first time. I think it was December. Never been there. And the place was dead silent. I mean, this place has, I don't know, 10,000 gallons of water running, and you didn't hear nothing. And so I was like, I'm not even going to need my microphone. Boy, was I dumb. Because, yes, it was quiet, and you could hear me talk, but the iPhone was like looking for audio, so it just like turned everything up, and it makes it sound ridiculously loud. So now I've got to go through and either clean my audio, or I need to just block it all out and narrate fresh content, because it's a shame, because I was trying to show, listen how quiet it is in here, guys. And it's like on the audio, and it's like, oh, I was so wrong. I should have just worn my microphone. It would have been perfect. But it's unbelievably quiet. It's incredible what he's pulled off. It's a beautiful, beautiful place.
Full disclosure, Dan is what made me redo my back wall and do all these audio panels to improve.
He loves that stuff. He's big on that. It was everywhere I went. I went into his big podcast studio. I looked at his office areas. I was looking at everything. I was just running around like a kid in a candy store. It was great. It was such a pretty place.
Oh yeah, it's definitely on my to-do list to go there. But yeah,
and then he took me next door. Like outside the building, he's got his original greenhouse that the business started with. Crazy loud, can't hear each other talk. Completely different from the zillion-dollar studio that he's built. It's so wonderful. It's really amazing.
Oh yeah, I can't wait to go there one day.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a dangerous rabbit hole when you get into acoustics and like killing echoes and like
it adds up.
Quiet. Oh yeah, I feel you. I did the full back wall and the full ceiling and similar sound panels to what Dan has, like the same company. It's a dangerous rabbit hole.
So I've got a guest room with a bed.
Yeah.
That's pretty much all it's in there. I need to go get some more furniture for it, like end tables and stuff. But when you're in there talking, you just echo off the walls. It's like, I need to add some stuff to, hang a carpet on the wall or something, just so you can have a conversation. You don't hear your voice echoing while you're on a phone call or something.
The cheap solutions using like thick moving blankets hanging on the walls. The pretty solutions getting sound panels.
Yeah. Well, for a guest room, it doesn't really matter, but it'd just be nice.
No, definitely. Okay, totally off topic. Any other kind of pro tips for long-term reef tank success?
Cleaning things regularly, especially gear, because gear is expensive. No matter what you buy, especially if you're buying quality. But if you don't maintain it, if you don't keep it clean and operational, number one, it's not going to work as good as it did originally because you didn't take care of it. Number two, you're not going to get the benefits that you were getting with it originally because it's all fouled up.
Yep.
So like vortex that are covered in coralline or covered in algae and the flow is just barely limping out. Obviously the coral growth is going to be different than when you have a nice clean basket, and you've got good clean propeller and you've got good contact and it's aligned properly and it's dead silent. It's not wallowing itself out. It's producing the amount of flow you're wanting. And the longer you ignore it and let it go or let bubble algae grow in it or whatever and deflects the water a different direction, it affects all the livestock in your tank. It's not just a propeller that can be ignored. And your return pump is something a lot of people ignore. They don't take them apart to clean them regularly. And that is something you should be doing at least once a year. And some people are like, I haven't touched it in 5 years. Like, that's not a good thing. Don't brag about that.
Just because it works doesn't mean it's running optimally.
Yeah. And your skimmer has, 1 or 2 pumps on it. You want to take those apart and clean them. You want to make sure the venturi lines are not clogged with detritus or salt blockage, literally like hard rock. You want to clean all that out so the skimmer can do its job and literally export waste. And my skimmer, it might not look clean, but boy, is it doing its job lately because I went through it and did some, key maintenance points. And I'm pulling out like this much skimmate.
Nice.
Almost daily. It's like it fills up my waste collector and I get a text saying it's full and it turns off the skimmer and I go dump it out. So I'm doing mini water changes, Devon style, except I'm using a skimmer to do it. So it pulls it out and
it's a great way to do it. So maintenance is actually a really important thing that you touched on. And for keeping everything running happy long term, preventing stuff from failing and losing performance. So I guess maintenance schedule, how often would you say you clean your return pump?
Once a year, because I have a super beefy one.
Yeah.
It takes 2 screwdrivers to pry it open. It's ridiculous. But once a year, it's fine for that pump.
Yearly for return pump. Well, how about power heads?
Power heads every 3 months.
Yeah, I'm probably similar. Skimmer.
Every 6.
That's pretty good. I'm probably somewhere between 6 to a year range.
You can do a deep soak of the entire thing once a year.
Yeah, that's
especially if you're treating your tank for cyanobacteria. It's the perfect time to take the skimmer out and let it soak because it's gonna be off for 3 days anyway.
Very, very true.
And then you've got calcium reactors, caulk reactors, algae turf scrubbers. All these different devices need to be cleaned out on the regular.
Yeah. What do you think? So on that one, actually, Refugium. Do you have a Refugium?
Yes, I do.
How often do you harvest from it?
I don't harvest from it very much because I don't have the abundant growth that I used to get because of the algae turf scrubber. I was told when that scrubber gets going and starts really doing its job, I will lose my Refugium. And I was actually trying to think, what will I put in that Refugium instead? Will I fill it up with sand and put garden eels? I mean, would I put something neat down there that I can't have on the top because it's almost 4 feet long. So I have a nice long swimming space for something interesting. But I've got a picture of the Refugium. Let's see. It's in decent shape. So I cleaned the glass on it because I like to enjoy the view. Let me see.
Recently I had a buddy that asked if he could have some Chaeto. He's like, I need a little bit. I was like, no, you're gonna a lot. I gave him this like massive bag. And I was looking at my Chaeto. This is like sadly embarrassing. I should probably tone it down. But it's probably like an inch or 2 growing out of the water. Like it's so thick.
Wow. Good job.
Well, I know, but it should be thin. Like I should have taken out half of this probably 6 months ago.
Yes.
So he asked for some, so I gave him this like massive, like giant Ziploc bag jammed full of it. And,
that's awesome. What'd you charge him?
Nothing.
Nice.
Free.
There are some companies that will send you like 3 blades of a plant for like $25. I'm like, what? I used to give people fistfuls for free or maybe $5 so I could buy phytoplankton from another guy growing phytoplankton,
When I first started reefing, I remember one of my LFSs would give me like, I don't know if it was like $5 or $7 credit for like a sandwich bag full. And I'd bring it in and get like 20 or $30 of credit. And I'd use that towards fish stuff in my early days of reefing. Which is good. Mud skippers. Those would be kind of cool, actually. Mangroves.
All right. So here's the picture, and let's see if I can scroll this up. You can see my Refugium at the bottom.
Oh, yeah, she's nice and impactful.
So it's decent. So, but I mean, if I were to like really go in there and cull it, I would end up with minimal growth because I don't have you'd think all my nutrients with my nitrate and phosphate would be fine, but it really is not the lush stuff because I'm not dosing like iron, the things plants like.
Just what I was about to ask.
The extra ingredients, that can make a big difference to really grow it in. And, but in the past, I would take out 25% of the Refugium monthly. That was part of my maintenance.
With,
But if you're starting a tank, or you're newer and you are putting in like a little tiny golf ball of something in this big refugium, like it's taking forever to grow or just dies, like, yeah, there's a lot of reasons why it's not going to go well. I've always encouraged, and matter of fact, I watched a video on the BRS channel years ago because I was curious. It was like the 14 things you're doing wrong in your refugium. I was like, I got to hear this. And so I watched it, and I think they might have said it that, you need more plant to get going. You got to like load it up. You can't just put in one thing and think you'll be fine. It's going to take too long to get to that point. So you got to actually put in a decent amount to get things going. Make sure you got the right lighting, the right duration of light, the right amount of flow. And if you get it all set, your plants will start growing.
Yeah, that's fair. I find
and then you have to pull it out.
If yours isn't growing, guaranteed you're deficient in iron and manganese and a bunch of the plant ones. And I find that's fairly common because tanks will go gangbusters, refugiums will do well, and then it'll just stop and stuff's stunted.
Because it used it all up.
Yeah,
that's right.
And then part of me often, I always have these weird debates in my head, but I'm like, with the refugium, how much is it stealing all the trace elements from my corals? And it's always those weird little battles, but
it's not. I mean, it's not stealing from your corals.
Well, it's
part of the
away what they would be
ecosystem.
Yeah.
No, it's part of the ecosystem. I mean, everything uses something. I mean, everything in your system uses something.
Yeah.
And the fact that we are at this point in the hobby where so many people are scared of everything. Everything's evil. Everything's a bad thing. Every bug. I don't trust it. I don't trust this crab. I don't trust this claw. I don't trust this fish. I don't trust it. And, I don't want live rock. I don't want to take a chance. I don't want the sponge. It's got to go. This, the Q-tip sponges. Oh, there's too many. Or you show them something that's kind of neat and they're like, oh, that must be Aptasia. I'm like, it's not even Aptasia. And they're like, oh, I don't want it. And it's like, they're all part of what makes the ecosystem work. And
diversity.
So removing key components of a reef ecosystem is a big mistake. And it makes it harder for the whole thing to work.
Well, especially sponges too, because that, to me, like once a tank starts to mature, sponges just magically appear and they help filter your water.
Yeah.
They're great to have in your tank. Like obviously you don't want ones that are like choking at your corals, but on the underside of rock and all those places, like great spots for sponges. Yep.
So don't kill them.
Yeah, pretty much. If they're not choking out your coral, just let her be.
Right. But I don't think that like Caulerpa or Chaetomorpha is just going to steal from the tank. And really,
it doesn't steal. But
and then keep in mind too, when you're dosing your tank, aren't you dosing it for the total water volume anyway? You're not dosing for the refugium zone.
Well, we're assuming that you actually know how much you're dosing and not just guessing and haven't done an ICP test.
Right, you shouldn't be guessing. If you're putting in iron or something, you're going to do it for, like in my system, it's 450 gallons. So I need to figure out how much iron I need to increase my number to get to the optimum level in a 450 gallon system. So I'm going to be dosing that much iron. Yeah. I'm not dosing what's going to be in a 20 gallon refugium and thinking it's all going to stay in there with the plants. It's going to migrate and go everywhere.
No, it is.
So then the corals will get that iron as well.
In theory, if you have a massive refugium and you're dosing trace elements, and you have no refugium, you're dosing trace elements, there's going to be a lot less availability of certain ones in the Chaeto tank versus the other one. That was more my point. Okay. Like it's not stealing, but it's less available to the corals because it's likely growing faster and sucking it faster.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can see that.
Yeah, trade-off. So yeah, long-term, maintenancing your stuff. Water changes are always a good idea, especially on a new tank until it's mature. And they're good long-term. I know people get slackers on it as tanks get older.
Yeah.
And I go in waves of, I do a bunch and then I don't do them.
Because you just get tired of it.
I mean, it's work.
Get sick of it. Yeah.
Automating them's a lovely thing because then it happens without you, as long as it's on and you refill your fats.
Yeah.
Do you do automatic water changes or just manual?
I barely even do manual. I have not. I did one on this little 1 gallon tank last week. Okay, so that one happened in 2025.
Yeah.
That one didn't get it. Caitlin's Reef didn't get it. The 400, no, that was the only tank. So I have 250 gallons and I took 1 gallon out. So yeah, I got 249 gallons of salt water left. But I have plans. I think February will be the month where I actually do some water changing, on my systems.
Yeah, you give it one for Christmas, the holidays, show it a little love for Valentine's Day.
For Valentine's Day, exactly, yeah. Another
tanks.
thing to maintain that we didn't talk about is you're maintaining your RODI system, which was my topic last week on my channel.
Yep.
Because that's not something you can neglect or ignore or blow off. And in my case, I actually had something, and I tried to explain it on my stream, but I don't even know if I explained it properly. I kept telling everyone, this has never happened to me before. This instance, I've heard of it, but it's never happened to me. But I don't know if I explained what would happen, the alternative, because there's two ways something can happen. And so anyway, that was my topic last week.
Nice. It's a good one. And it is something that you kind of ignore for a while. Like if your pressure is dropping, time to change those filters. If your TDS is creeping up, time to get some new DI. It is one of those things a lot of people do ignore. One thing, actually, I might dig into this in the near future too. Salinity is another big one that I find people get complacent and they don't test it as much as they should. And it controls so many things in your tank.
Yep.
So, I mean, new tank in my, an auto top off is fairly essential because manually topping off tank has old really fast. Yep. And just keeping it stable makes like a big, big difference. But
yeah, the auto top off is another thing to keep up with for your maintenance. There's a pump in there too. And you want to make sure there's no contaminants in there. Make sure it's nice and clean.
Yep.
That you're not like filling it up with RODI that's 0 TDS, but your container has got 15 in it. So now you're putting in 15 with every time you shoot water into your sump to top off.
Do you clean your ATO container very often?
I don't need to. Mine is sealed.
Okay, I was going to say, I'm like, I don't think I've ever cleaned mine. My salt bin, sure, but RODI, no. Yeah.
No, my container's sealed. I never reach into it. I mean, the day I reached into it was the day I installed the pump. That's it. And then if I have to swap a pump out, I rinse it off first before I put it in because I don't want it to become a problem. And so I will check the TDS of the container and it's like 1. I'm like, yep, we're good. And so, I mean, I had my last top off container was 7 years old when I took it out and it looked like the day I put it in. It was just old, but it was, and I put a new one in that was a little bit smaller. So it's easier to remove if I did need to clean it. That was my goal.
Oh, that's a good way to go. Making things easy for you. That is long term. If it's a pain to clean a power head and you got to untangle wires and all this jazz, you're going to do it less. Right. If it's really easy to clean it, you're going to do it more frequently. That's one thing that I've noticed long term is when I do new things, I try and make it easy for me to maintain it because then I'll actually do it.
I really like it when I can take something away from the tank and go to the sink. And I remembered I used to run a type of pump from Tunzi and it had a crazy long wire on it, which was great, but it wasn't quite long enough to make it to my sink. So I would pull it out of the tank and I'd be behind the aquarium in the fish room and I had a bucket of acid or a bucket of vinegar or whatever. I used acid. It was always faster. And I would just take the pump and drop it in and leave it running and let it run through the acid for 15, 20 minutes till it stopped bubbling. And then I would, by the cord, lift it up and stick it in the bucket of rinse water. And then I would disassemble it and I was in my fish room with a toothbrush cleaning it. And then I put it together and shove it back in the tank. But if you have everything, if you have a lot of, if you've tethered down all your wiring, to have really pretty, what's the word I'm looking for? When you have really good, thank you. That was it. If you have really nice cable management, last thing you want to do is undo it to remove a power head or to change out a heater. Because all those wires are so beautifully straight and you've zip tied it 86 times across there to have a zipper. And it's, or you've got Velcro wraps and it's just like, you have to have certain things that will come loose to work on one way or another, or you just kind of have to embrace the rat's nest because you can work on your tank. But if you really tether it all down, you'll like you said before, you probably won't deal with it because you don't want to undo your hard work. But
so it's
better if you cleaned it all up.
Anything you can do to make it easy goes a long way. And not having a rat sense, being organized does make it easier to maintain stuff. So there's definitely
I think so too. Yeah. It's just you have to dedicate a day to fixing all the wires again. And then it's pretty and you're proud of it. And you bring your spouse in, look what I did. And they're like, I can't tell the difference. And you're like, here's a before picture. Now do you see the difference, Yeah.
And you're like, my back hurts. I've been on the floor for hours organizing this.
I know. Or you're on the floor for hours. Like, what's taking you so long? You're like, I'm almost done, and you're still
get up. I'm still organizing.
I can't get up. My legs are numb.
Yeah, pretty much. I'm here for the night. See you tomorrow.
Nice.
So that stuff all goes a long way. Just keeping stuff neat and organized. Is big. Aquarium controllers, are they essential? Would you run a tank without them?
I prefer not to.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, I'd rather know what's going on. It's just the more I know, the better.
Yeah.
Seriously. I mean, I tell everyone on my show every single week, test your water weekly.
What do you use to test your salinity, since we talked about it a second ago?
Oh, I use a refractometer.
Okay.
I'm still on that. I've been using one forever because I have to go to multiple tanks. And so for example, if I got the Tropic Marin hydrometer, the crazy tall one that's like 18 inches tall, can't use it on my little 1 gallon. I would have to take out all the water out of the tank to stick it in the vial for the test, and the fish is flopping around on the gravel waiting for the water to come back.
Use that as part of your water change, and then you dump a new one.
No, I just use the refractometer. It's just simpler for me, and it works. And I look at the bright light, and boom, I can see the number.
That's fair. I bought that Milwaukee one. I've been a big fan of that one lately. Drop. That one's been nice because you just put a little bit of RO
forever before my refractometer. That's called a digital refractometer.
Yes.
The one where you can set on the table and put liquid in there.
Yeah, I like that one. I don't lose it. I have 2 of the Nano ones, and they often just disappear for months. And then when I find them both, I calibrate them both at the same time.
Oh, the Hanna pen?
Yeah. But I like the Milwaukee better because you can calibrate the RODI. You don't need a special solution, which is nice.
I agree.
But refractometers are good as long as you're gentle with them. Don't smack them around. But
I keep it in the original box.
That's good.
So it has like the cutout compartment, so it just fits in there, and it has a screwdriver and it has the pipette. And I always keep it in there. It doesn't get bumped around. It's always in the same spot.
Perfect.
It's actually in my kitchen at all times.
Ooh. That's good.
So it's handy. I mean, it's like insight. You get it. You use it. You put something away, less likely to use it.
Yep, 100%. Makes you do it more. 1.023, no, too low. If you have fish only, 2.5, 2.6 is kind of like the happy range for me. Or 35 ppt for the other side of the crowd. Okay, it's been an hour and a half. Won't keep you too late, but any other big key things that come to mind?
Well, again, when we were talking about stability earlier, one of the ways to maintain stability is to have accurate testing. And if your test kits are old, that's not a good way to keep testing because the reagents can spoil, they can expire, they can be oxidized. You can start getting false results and you're thinking everything's fine when in reality it's not. Calibration of things like dosing pumps. I don't know a lot of people that do that regularly. I don't hear people talk about it very much. And realistically, if you're saying put in 20 milliliters of this daily or put in 15 of this or put in 200 of that, you should double check to make sure it's actually putting that number in.
I'm going to play devil's advocate. As long as your parameters are stable, does it really matter?
It just depends if you're trying to acquire like, for example, you talk about trace elements. And if you were trying to put in very specific micro dosing, you want to make sure your machine is putting in that amount of liquid. When I got my brand new Sol, which is the new continuous dose pump from Hydros for the calcium reactor, it came with a beaker to calibrate with. And I was like, good, because I already know what I need. I need 60 milliliters a minute. That's what I need.
Yeah.
But if I don't know what's coming out and I set it to 60 and I just assume everything's fine, my numbers could wander down or up based on where the thing is. And when I was using the Versa pumps, and we've had this conversation, and my tubing collapses over time and I have to, it slows the rate. And then I go and I recalibrate the Versa, and now it's running way faster to give me my 60 milliliters. And you can hear the thing across the room like, wee, because it's trying to give me 60 because the tubing's bad. So I had to put a new piece of tubing on there and then reduce it back down to the slower speed to get the 60. I want the number to be what the number's supposed to be because I'm trying to dose a specific amount. And if you, like you said, I'm doing a water change, 500 milliliters. Well, if for example, one side's pulling out 500,
important
for
the
other
water
side,
change.
and the other side's putting in 450, that means your top off is putting the other 50. And you could literally lower the salinity of your tank over the next 10, 15, 20 water changes. You could gradually affect it downward. So calibrating that is a perfect example of something to do. And I don't hear people talking about doing that very often.
No, that's true. Auto water changes is definitely important to do periodically. Trace elements, yes, I do agree with you on that one. For doing normal dosing, if you're dosing 50 mils a day and, maybe it's 55 instead of 50, as long as stuff are stable, I don't overly worry. But yes, water changes for you doing it consistently. And, small stuff, definitely a lot more important.
I mean, when I see someone say, I got a 39-gallon aquarium and I'm putting in 200 milliliters of alkalinity a day, I'm like, mathematically, that's wrong. You're literally doing something wrong. And then I have to start asking, what are you doing that's causing that? So putting the right amount of solution is actually important too. And I'm not talking about calibration this one. I'm talking about what are you doing wrong to where you need 200 ml because the tank's not big enough. When I did my 29 gallon, I needed 15 ml. When I had my 55 gallon, I needed 35 ml. And that's it. So I those are kind of like my benchmark points. When I'm doing quick math of how much your tank might need, I'm thinking of my 15 and my 35. I'm like, okay, so why would you need 200? How big is your tank? Is this a 280 gallon? Like, oh no, it's just a 39. I'm like, what is happening? Where's it all going? What's happening?
All coral, like 10% water volume.
Or it's turning to shale in the bottom of the sump because it's just dripping down and just and precipitating out immediately on contact because it's not in a good area of circulation. Or the dosing pump has a leak, or whatever. So, or your stuff's too weak in the first place and you need 200 because you're not making the right density of the chemical.
Didn't consider that, but yeah, that's a fair point.
There's a lot of different things that come into play. So figuring out what's happening using the Reef chemistry calculators is key. I use them all the time. They're bookmarked in my browser. I use them for even mixing up batches of salt water. I measure, because there's always some water left in my big, huge tank. And then I add RODI. I let it circulate for a little bit to make sure it's all equal. I measure, and my refractometer says 1.005. Like, okay. So I stick that in the calculator. I say there's 250 gallons of water. How much salt do I need? And it says 77.1 pounds.
Really?
Done. And I put in my 77.1 pounds, and it's 35 ppt. It's great.
Interesting. I've never done it by weight. I just dump some in, wait a few minutes, test it.
Yeah, I want to be done. Talk about doing things easy and not having to do it twice. Yeah. And the thing is, I've done it where I'm like, this sounds crazy. There's no way that's right. So I put in like 60 pounds instead of the 77.1 and I'd measure it and it's like 1.021. I'm like, oh, that's weird. So I put in 5 more pounds and I let it mix and I check it again. And it's like 1.0235. I'm like, okay. And I'm like, wow, it really was exactly the number. And the same thing works for dosing 2-part when you're trying to make a correction in the tank or you're trying to lower a number and you need to know how much to use. Those Reef chemistry calculators are fantastic to know exactly what you need to put in.
I'm curious. I'm going to try it by weight next time just so I know.
I weigh all my salt. I always do it. It's just so much better that way. I don't have any mistakes.
Well, I do it with dosing chemicals, so why not salt, right? Makes sense.
Yeah.
Don't know why I don't, but I should. I like it.
Yeah, I use that Hamzah calculator. It's HAMZAH. And he's got tons of calculators, but he's got one called Salinity Correction or Salinity Addition or something like that. And it's really nice for salt water that's too salty or water that's not salty enough. He can help you figure out how to get it correct.
Now, how well does it work with different brands of salt? Is all the same?
I haven't had any issues. Nice. I don't think anyone asks you what brand. It just asks you what you want. Okay. And I've used it with Salinity and I've used it with Fritz. And it does exactly what I'm supposed to do. Perfect.
I like it. I have not used the Hamzah one, so there you go.
Very handy calculators. I wish I had my own calculators. Everyone came to Mila's Reef to use them.
Why don't you make one?
Business. I don't know. I don't know how to do it.
There's a way.
I know. It's probably just stealing someone's JavaScript or something and pasting it to my own website.
There you go.
I'd rather get permission than steal someone's stuff.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay, done. Bookmarked. I'm going to try that.
Nice.
Been inspired. So I don't know. I think it was a pretty good overhaul of, stuff to keep you successful in the long term.
The last step of keeping a tank long term.
Yes.
2 words. Never quit. Never quit.
That's true. That's true.
You just don't give up. You don't cave in. You don't get frustrated. I mean, yeah, it sucks. There's a setback, but you just don't stop. You just keep going.
Yep. And eventually you've dealt with everything. You've fought all the battles and you've triumphed over them, right?
Well, what happens is you come back to the first problem. After 30 years, you're like, oh God, this happened to me in my first year. I remember now.
What did I do again?
It's been so long you forgot what you did wrong that first time. Yeah.
Yeah, persistence definitely pays off. And realistically, any problem can be solved.
Yeah.
Like there's stuff to get rid of aquarium flatworm. There's stuff to get rid of Aptasia. There's natural predators. There's bryopsis used to make people shut a tank. Now you dose some fluconazole and it all goes away. Like there's stuff to solve almost anything now, or a predator for it, or a little manual effort that can solve it.
Yeah.
So
no, in the end, it just comes down to how much time and money you have.
Yeah.
And as long as you can keep, both of those, so you have time to work on it, and you have time, you have money to spend on it to fix the problem or resolve what the
Yep.
issue is. Yeah, you can pretty much correct anything.
If you have less
And
money, you need more time, but it all works out in the end.
the frustration level is the problem. When you
Mm.
just get to that point where you can't take it anymore, that's kind of ties in with burnout. And but if you really care about the animals,
Yeah.
it doesn't really matter.
Mm.
Because the animals are what this whole hobby is about.
It's very, very true. You gotta love it. You gotta have that passion for it. Ryan,
Yeah.
thank you very much for the 499 super chat. Thanks for the great stream. Great topic tonight. Thank you. Much appreciated.
Good.
But yeah, I think reefers all have a little bit of an obsessive personality and that little bit of like stubborn dedication to like figure it out and
Yeah.
make it work. And I think a lot of us long term have that. And it's one of those things where you're never going to know it all. You're always going to be learning. And I think that's something that keeps a lot of us in the hobby is because you're always learning. Like, you could be in it for 20, 30 years and you're still learning something new every time you have like a good conversation, which is fun. But yeah, persistence definitely pays off.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for joining me tonight, Mark.
Sure. Thanks for the invite.
Awesome. All right, guys. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Unfortunately, I must run to make dinner and all that jazz now. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed it. If you haven't, make sure you check out Mark's channel, Mila's Reef. And for all kinds of fun Saturday live streams at 8 minutes after whatever time it starts in Central Time. I don't remember.
2:08 Central Time.
2:08. And no, I did not copy your 2:08 with my 10 after, but
You totally did.
I do appreciate it now that you pointed it out.
It's awesome.
Perfect. We'll start a new trend now. It'll be like none of this on the hour of business. But yeah, hopefully everyone enjoyed it. If you did, hit the like button. Thank you for the super chat, guys. Much appreciated. And we will catch you guys in next week's live stream.
Bye.
Bye.